Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on December 26, 2022 at approximately 4:27 p.m. PST. I've gone this route before on how to reclaim power over your life. And how to do it now. But this is a little bit more involved from the standpoint. I'm going to turn this off. From the standpoint of we've now reached the end of 2022. Well, in all fairness, not quite. We've got a few days. So, time to get started on really regaining control, figuring out where you're heading. And I'm talking about control of your life, not of anybody else's. Now, I build myself as a spiritual guide for one primary purpose, and that is to ensure, to pass on one simple message to as many people as possible. That message being that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, the other issue is every tool that I offer is a tool I personally use. Okay, it's not a question of you should do this, I'm going to go do this. Okay, now, quick little interruption there. Nylock, welcome aboard, and you've got the gold today. I'm glad you could join us. I'm aiming, hopefully, we're going to see a real upswing in the exposure and what have you, because this message is absolutely critical. And let us see, we refresh this so I can actually see what's going on, which is always a nice thing, at least I think. And we are live, bonus. So we grab that. I think I figured out how to get that to work. It's a gamble right now because my computer is really in a bit of a scramble. Now we have with the silver, we have Emily and Shadow. Welcome aboard. You come in with the bronze, and we've got a real backlog here. There we go. Don't need the volume, just need to be able to see what's showing up in the chat room. And that being said, I think I've got a bit of a scramble here. Don't want that. And there's what I wanted. Carl, and you entered the door with honorable mention. I'm really happy you guys have shown up. I did not take I didn't come on yesterday, as we all suspected I wouldn't. If you look at the top of the chat room, you'll see, well, at this point, 4 links to other people's YouTube channels. Okay, and as I get more people with YouTube channels, that list will grow. The last link that is on that is up at the top of the chat room. Okay, I mentioned yesterday that my other half had done a phenomenal, in my opinion, a phenomenal job, a phenomenal rendition of the song "Oh Holy Night." Now, as she pointed out, it probably would have been an idea to try to actually think about it first, but frankly, I'm usually behind time. But with that in mind, okay, I was, she did give me permission, and quite frankly, if she hadn't, I wouldn't have had the link to give you. Okay, but hopefully Christmas was good for you guys. Okay, regardless of how you celebrated. But now we're walking into tying off the whole year. Now, 2022 could have been your best, could have been your worst. I don't know. Wondering what I did with the other part of it. Not that. Somewhere around here I've got it. This can be moved out of the way because I don't need it. As you can tell, things are, as per usual, a little scrambled. But I can work with it. But, I got looking at it, and it's like, okay, what do we do with 2023? Are we going to continue going down the road that we've been going down? And the choice is yours. Okay. Oh, my sympathies there, Carl. Yeah, mine was a little off kilter, but and in a lot of ways you could call it the worst. I mean, nothing like getting told right before Christmas, oh, by the way, you're not working. Okay, you're no longer employed. On the plus side of that, though, I got looking at it, and at 59, I actually had 50 years of full-time work under my belt. Okay, 50 years of paid full-time work. You know, and, in all of that time, and I have not worked out how many different jobs I had, but what I do know is every one of the jobs I had, I basically told the boss, this is what I'm doing. I know what your rules are, and I'll get back to them. This is what I'm doing. Okay, never once was I fired. I don't know why. Okay, when you tell your boss in front of a bunch of millionaires that he has to grow up and then you'll talk to him, this usually gets you fired. Okay, but Christmas itself, for me, was kind of eye-opening. So here's what I'm looking at. Better get into that. That depends. Nanox asked, does the occult and such dark beliefs have an alien race attached to it? That depends on who you talk to. Okay. Many of it's just my personal opinion, and maybe I'm reading something wrong. But with some of the shows that are coming out, like Ancient Aliens, they seem to be pointing everything and saying that's where all the benefit came. That's where all the good changes came from. And I'm telling you, that is not the way it is. Mankind has absolutely patterned many of their discoveries on things they've seen, either in nature or in somebody else's culture. Okay, that's first and foremost. But the issue of are there dark beliefs out there? Certainly. And when you think about it, there's one race called the Daemon. They come in various different appearances. And I'll tell you, from most people's standpoint, you see these guys wandering around. Okay, you're going to have troubles with it. Okay, and some of them are very odd looking, or they're the stuff of horror shows. There's no question there. Okay, we have to take a look at it, and go, is there a dark side? It doesn't matter what you do. You take a look at it. Now, a pen, really, really positive stuff can come with it. But some of what I consider, and I'm not going to go into which ones, some of the stupidest decisions are either passed into law or passed into policy, utilizing a pen. Okay. And yet some of the most phenomenal works of art are also put together with a pen. Saint, how you doing? Welcome aboard. Glad you could join us. So you've got to take a look. Well, I keep saying you have to, and you really don't. Everyone in existence has free choice. You've all got free will. What you don't have is you don't have freedom of consequence. Now, you can take everything that went on in the past, and you can go, okay, I'm going to dwell on all the things that went wrong. I'm going to point the finger at everybody that I can and say it's not my fault. Well, I'll tell you, I made some pretty stupid moves last year. I call them stupid because I knew better and did it anyway. Okay, and now I'm in a bit of a pickle. So I'm working things through. But I do encourage you to do some major factors here. Let's see if I can find the sheet that I'm looking for, which is highly improbable knowing me. That's not it. Of course, the stuff I want isn't readily visible. What do we got there? Okay, let's get some of this stuff off out of the way so I don't actually have to deal with it. What's that? These are sheets of paper that I will go through after I'm done. But here's the thing. There's one we'll hang on to right off the bat. As you can see, I'm very well organized in my office. It's amazing I get anything accomplished. But these 4 words, take those to heart in any language, in any spoken, written, or signed language. It doesn't matter. Those 4 words combined are the 4 most powerful words I've come across in combination to stimulate self-worth, self-esteem, self-motivation. You get the picture. Okay. Now, when you take a look at those, you have to, it's very wise. What's not very wise is how I managed to lose all that. And I don't know where it went, so I'm not going to look for it. Anyway, it's time to look at what went through last year. Now, you have undoubtedly made some good choices, made some decisions that worked out really well, made some choices that didn't pan out all that well. Okay. So what are you going to do with it? You can look to the past and you can go, I did all these things wrong and I can beat myself black and blue. Okay. In the case, and this one just comes right to mind. Okay. In the case where you've had what you consider a real bad year. Okay. Or in this specific case, a really bad Christmas. Okay. Now I can look at Christmas and go, everything was a shambles. Okay. Ultimately, you are correct. Carl's just saying, I don't believe there is something as pure as pure evil. I consider anything or anyone referred to as evil and to be a consequence of absence of love, which ultimately is correct, because there is, everything has some sort of a motivation. Even when you take a look at the truly, what people see as truly evil people, and the obvious one out of history is, we take a look at, people like Hitler, like Attila the Hun, like Alexander the Great. Some of these people, were considered by the people of their time as being absolutely evil. But if you think about it, okay, we take a look at Hitler. Now, Hitler was an absolute genius, and no, I'm not a fan of the man. He had some pretty twisted ideas. Okay, but he did have, well, every president, some people will look at Obama and go, he was evil. Ironically, some of the most evil people in the world that people consider evil had motivations that were decent. You think about it. Now, granted, when we take a look at Hitler, he was a little bit of an extremist, to say the least. Okay, what he did was horrendous, but the motivation was to unify the world. Okay, now he picked all sorts of bizarre things. I'm not going to go into a history discussion over it. Okay, the reality. Well, that worked well. Should never do that. Dislocate a wrist and put it back, and have to get it sorted out. But anyway, even people who do horrendous things, most of the time they have some sort of a motivation that is quantifiable. Now, you take a look at yourself. Look at the way your life went, and that your year is gone. And I'm gonna stick with focusing on Christmas for the moment. Now, I did not decorate Christmas as much as I could have this year. No, it is not a requirement by any functional way of looking at it. What have we got here? Yeah. Welcome aboard, Philip. Glad you could make it. So, who are you sending the 2 turtle doves and the partridge and the pear tree to? But whatever you're celebrating, Like I look at Christmas, this one we just came through. Okay, and I decided this year that good afternoon, Ken. Glad you could join us. I look at it and go, okay, I didn't have as much decoration as I could have had up. Now, granted, there's no way I was putting garland up at the ceiling this year because my leg wouldn't take it. But I could have put, and for next year I'm going to, but I could have put more lights around the house. Yes, it is just for my own enjoyment. Well, for mine and my son's. Okay, but I've already started working on next year's Christmas, laying it out that side of it. But I can take a look at the mistakes that I made, and I call them mistakes because, well, frankly, I knew better. Yeah, you caught that, eh, Philip? It's a great idea unless you're planning on having a shadow walker over for company. They're not overly interested in the garlic. By the way, just a real side note, since the shadow walker came into the picture. At the beginning, right in the first few chapters of the Return to Paradise, I've actually brought the shadow walkers back into the storyline. Okay, and like I said, everything is connected. There is no question there at all. Now, I look at the finances that I created a fiasco with, and different choices. Now I've got a choice, and you've got the same one. Look at the past year. You can dwell on what you did that you consider either wrong or ineffective, and you can dwell on the fact that you screwed up, or you can go, okay, that didn't work all that well for me, so I'm going to alter it. Okay, I've already got things starting into motion, and a number of things that I have to put in balance. I wonder, did I put it over there? Because I don't know. Sure. Can't see either. Oh, I don't know. Bothers me when I can't remember where I put something, especially when it was something that was useful. But take a look at what you've done with your life and go, how am I going to make 2023 better? Okay, and all that boils down to is look at what you've done, look at what you're content with, and move everything else out of the way. Okay, take everything that didn't, shall we say, set that emotion properly, or you can hang on to it and go, oh, woe is me, everything went wrong, or I made these phenomenal mistakes. And rest assured, considering I wiped out my entire financial backload and I'm now sitting in a really dangerous place, I can get very depressed about it, or I can look at it and go, what am I going to do with it? Okay, I just worked it out today. I don't even have the paycheck I was hoping to get. I doubt very much I'll get a plug nickel at the end of the month. But on the plus side, I did get our severance. So you take a look in the mirror and you go, where am I heading? Okay. Oh, I did miss you. Did miss you coming in there, Chad. Welcome aboard. Glad you could join us today. And just a reiteration, I said this earlier, for those of you that haven't noticed, yesterday I was talking we got talking about favorite Christmas songs and what have you. And I'm going to draw your attention to the top of the chat room. There is a link there of my other half singing "Oh Holy Night." Okay. And I absolutely encourage you to listen to it. For me, it's a phenomenal rendition. Now, maybe I'm a little biased. Lord knows you wouldn't want me singing "Oh Holy Night," or for that matter, "Row, Row, Row Your Boat." So I'm looking at it going, where are we here? Yeah, in all fairness, I'm actually setting up tomorrow morning. I'm going to call my bank there, Philip, because I do have an RSP. It is tiny, okay, but it will buy me a couple of months. So I take it all at once. I'm thinking that, well, I've got to be, and to give specific numbers, I've only got about $15,000 in it. Now, with that in mind, pulling the plug on it, if I get 8, that still buys me 4 months of living without any worry. So I'm going to be talking to them and seeing what happens if I pull the plug, because an RSP at this point, let's face it, I'm heading into retirement. I am going to be retiring at 60, which is in May. And all of that will be set in motion extremely quickly. That will help. Now, if I get more than that, that's great. I know it's only 15,000. If it is the case of it's only going to bring me less than half of that, then there is absolutely no point in pulling it out. At that point, you let it come out as it will, which will be just a few dollars a month. At least in my opinion. So I'm looking at just basically, hobbling along until I can get the books to move. So I've got a number of things I got to do tomorrow, which boils down to completing the paperwork to fire my last publisher, get back in touch with the people that handle ISBNs and get those numbers coming through my front door, as well as get a hold of copyright and get the paperwork that I desire to say everything is in place. Then I'll figure out what to do with it. Okay, but these are just things, because I'm looking at this going, okay, I'm entering the next stage of my life. Absolutely I am. And you're entering the next stage of your life. You may not be retiring, but I will tell you this. And with some of you, I really hope you've got the money to retire. I'm not holding my breath on it. Okay. Yeah, and your comment there, Philip, I absolutely agree with it. And with that in mind, regardless of how old you are, take a look at your finances now and start looking to your retirement years. Because frankly, the government is not something you can exactly rely on. More people are retiring today than are entering the workforce. Okay, which means this whole idea of trying to get the government to help, well, first of all, we are talking to government. Okay. Second of all, they pull the information together, they pull the help together through tax money, which I got no problem with the tax issue. Well, actually, I've got a couple, but that's another complicated setup. But start looking at that. Okay, now I'm looking at my whole situation that I'm in right now. Okay, my health, my health, physical, mental, financial. Those 3 are critical issues. Okay, and I've already started clearing some of those around. Okay, I've already changed I've ended up picking up a supplement because of this one leg of mine. I don't mean the bad leg, I mean the good leg. Okay, but look at the shape you're in. Your body, as you get older, things do change. Kind of like when you're a child and you start hitting puberty, things change. Now, I cannot tell you exactly what your body's going to do or what your mind is going to do. What I can tell you is learning a new language. Like I'm going to be teaching myself this year. One of the things I do intend on learning is to sight read Braille. Now, I already know my sense of touch is pointless when it comes to reading Braille. I love this whole idea of the neurodiversity. I have never met a single person that thinks like another one. There are generalities, certainly, just like there's this generality. If you do not eat, you will starve to death. But in addition to that, I love the doctors that are coming out now that go, oh, don't diet, don't exercise, you won't drop weight. That's not the way to work. It doesn't work anymore. Get this pill. Newsflash, all I did, I was 246 pounds, and all I did was cut back on how much I was eating and increase my activity level. Now, if that doesn't work, somebody gets to figure out how, with no medication, no supplements, how it was I managed to drop 50 pounds in the last year. Okay, somebody else gets to figure it out. It's simple logic. If you put less calories into your body than what you're burning, you'll drop weight. If you put more calories into than what you're burning, you'll gain weight. Okay. Financially, if you're spending more than you're earning, you'll end up in debt. If you're spending less than you're earning, you end up with a backlog, with an increase in your bankroll. And I'm telling you from personal experience, absolutely necessary, absolutely critical that you turn around and set your finances up. Take a look at what you require. Talk to anybody you please. And, talk to somebody that knows numbers, that knows finances, to find out what you're going to require to maintain that kind of lifestyle. Okay, now I'm lucky. Okay, I can live on about $2,200 a month. Right now, I don't have that income. Okay. I appreciate the encouragement there, Shadow. Yeah, there's no question there. Something else there, and Philip's just saying activity and exercise is good for our brain as well. Here's another neat little news flash. When you're using your brain, it has been scientifically proven you will burn calories. Now, I'm sitting here, I told somebody the other day I was going into early retirement and I'm writing 30 books at once. He looks at me and he goes, Keith, that's not retiring. I said, well, I'm not going to work for anybody else. And no, am I likely to quit drinking coffee or run out of coffee? Not anytime soon. See, I've still got, now I only use 1 tablespoon of coffee grounds per 10 to 12 cups of coffee. Yes, very weak. But on the plus side, if you take a look at that, if I remember my math correctly, which is debatable, we have 3 tablespoons to the ounce. We've got 16 ounces to the pound. And then we've got times 2.21 equals 100. So I've got out of 1 kilo, I've got 106 cups of coffee, or pots of coffee. Okay. Now I've currently got 3 kilo, aka about 6.5 pounds of coffee in store. What do we got here? Philip, I used to. And then it finally dawned on me, and that was part of what caused my stroke, in all fairness, was I bottled everything I was worrying about. I didn't talk to anybody about it. Net result, I overloaded my system, what I call a major stroke. I figure couldn't walk, couldn't talk, pretty severe. I'm presuming, what do we got here? Yeah, see, the funny thing there, Shadow, where it comes to the summer, as far as it being a great time to drop weight, I don't leave the house in the summer. Like, I don't leave the house much at all. I can spend quite seriously a week or more without leaving my house. And being as I was working at home, that didn't even motivate me. But you take a look at everything you've got, and I do encourage you to do this. Okay. Get together a list of what you owe, a list of where you figure your critical problems are. Mentally speaking, worry is a killer. Okay. And I don't know of many people that don't worry about something. But the question I've taken to asking is, first and foremost, no, let's try that again. Am I worrying about something, or are you worrying about something that you've got no control over? If you've got no control over it, it may be wise to focus your energy elsewhere. Okay. Oh, did I miss somebody coming in here? Gordana, welcome aboard. Glad you can make it. I thought I saw somebody here. I'm not entirely certain. I caught you coming in. Football, welcome aboard. I try and keep an eye on people coming in, but as you know, that doesn't always work. But take a look at what you're worrying about. And I'm going to throw a wrench into things here because there's a lot of people that are walking down the road and being taught to worry about things that really don't add up. Okay. And we'll start with the obvious issue. I'm going to go sideways on you. And I'm going to take a look at astrology for a second. So many people look at astrology and we've been taught, Mercury is going retrograde, communication problems, technology complications. We're going to run into these problems. So fear retrograde. But here's the kicker to it. Where it comes to Mercury retrograde, you have to know what your personal and what Mercury was doing when you were born. Retrograde Mercury will have a direct opposing effect if you were born Mercury direct. On the other hand, if you were born with Mercury retrograde, when Mercury turns retrograde, it actually can accelerate the benefit and the beneficial side of things. It can clear up your communication lines. Okay, technology is kind of a funny thing because you got to realize that you've got, and I'm just throwing a number out there, you got 2,000 people building a piece of technology. Okay. Because you're looking at things from manufacturing, collecting the stuff that they make it with, processing the material, and then putting it all together, not to mention the designers. Every one of these people will have an impact on a subquantum level on the technology you're working with. So Mercury retrograde is not something that is absolutely a disaster here. Paul, glad you can make it. I'm really happy with the activity level that we've got here. Like I said, to me, the people in this chat room are proving to be more of a family to me than I've had in the past. And don't get me wrong, I get along fine with my brothers now, but over the years, not so much. And I'm sure many of you had the same problem. And yes, just so you're aware, if I run out of coffee, I've still got a pot up front all ready to go. The nice part about it is you can look at it like I'm looking at myself, and I do encourage you to look at yourself. Get a handle on your finances so you know where you're standing. So you absolutely know what you're looking at. I will have mine laid out. So on the 1st of January, I will be able to sit down and go, okay, the 1st of January, I've got this much money in these accounts. This is what I'm working with. And like I said, the best way to look at your finances is this. Look at what's coming in. If you're spending less, if you spend less money than what you're drawing in, your bank account is going to climb. And I cannot stress enough, and this is from personal experience, I cannot stress enough the importance of getting your finances under control now. Okay, it doesn't matter what age you are. I'm 59, left it way, way, way too late. Okay, so I'm behind the 8 ball here. And the stupid part is, I know this. I've been telling this to people for years. Carl, glad you could make it. Welcome to the lobby here. Or the chat room, I guess the best way of putting it. And for those of you that are listening in and not saying anything, absolutely, these messages all go to you. I cannot bring them forth and tell you directly because I don't know how many are viewing. All I know is what it tells me is in the chat room itself. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Philip. And what Philip has just said in the chat room here is a ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. Oh, nice. He found it in Dr. Susan Jeffers' book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. There's a saying that goes, if at first you don't succeed, try again. I like the flip side of that I work with. When at first you don't succeed, and when at first you do succeed, go do something else. But you succeed by looking at it first and going, I can do it, not I can't. Now, if you take a look at the earlier videos I did back in 2021, okay, there was a subset of videos I did called language. Okay, look them up. I think I've got 4 that are done that cover the words can't, try, if, and impossible. Now, I know, I can't prove it yet, I know there are 12 words in any language that are self-debilitating. Okay. And, I've identified 9 of them. Okay. Them being can't, if, try, impossible, always, never. Okay. Should. Okay. And there's a few others. I'm certain there's a few others because I've got 9 I know of. Okay. And what is really necessary at this point is look where you're standing. I'm looking at my outfit, my outfit here, and we'll call it an outfit, but rest assured, it just covers the wreck of a body. Although, in all fairness, at least I'm down under 100 under the 200-pound mark. As I'm sure you can well imagine, we just went through Christmas. I'm up a couple of pounds. Can't imagine what caused that. But take a look at your finances first. Take a look at your mental state. Are you worrying about everything that you've got no control over? In all fairness, Carl, Carl's asking, should you set up a GoFund page on YouTube to your subscribers' website? The funny part there is I've got what is it called? Buy Me a Coffee set up. I have no idea how to access it. Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio helped me set it up. But in all fairness, I have no idea if it's done anything. I don't see any activity on it. And by the way, don't know how to figure out if I've got any. But I did try setting a GoFundMe page up years ago, and it didn't work worth a hoot. Okay, I didn't get a plug nickel out of it. It's not that I'm against it, but we are talking about technology being a problem for me and trying to wrap my brain around it. In a lot of ways, the reality, the way I came across it there, Philip, is I looked at the word, it's impossible to do this. And I love the way the American military states it. Okay. And the way they put it, from my understanding, is the difficult we're already doing. The impossible just takes us a little longer. Okay. Now I've split impossible into 2 parts. I'm possible. And the reality is, everything that I'm talking about doing, if I can pull it together, so can you. Okay. There is very little on this planet that cannot be done. There's a lot I would not recommend. Of course, in all fairness, I wouldn't recommend skydiving. But then nobody's ever given me a rational reason to get out of a perfectly good aircraft. So I'm patient in that respect. I get in the aircraft, I'll stay in it until they get down on the ground and say, hey, we're parked. Okay. And then I'm edgy about where I ended up landing. Eris, glad you can make it. Welcome aboard. I am so happy with the people in this chat room. I walk in here, okay, and I watch the interaction between people, and it is amazing with the number of people from the number of different areas that we're looking at, from the number of different areas you guys all come from. This is just a microcosm. And I would love this message to get out to everyone in existence. Okay. Because we can clearly get along. Now, granted, there are times when you meet somebody, you can get along with them for a really short period of time. And then it's like, no, I've had enough. You know, I go to a restaurant, the only restaurant in the city that I go to. I get there first thing when it opens. Now, it'll seat a rough guesstimation 100 people. Okay. But the minute it gets to about the 20, 25 people in the place, I start feeling crowded. So it's like, I'm gone. I'm going home. You know, and that's just the way it is. You know, but if you desire to have and to reclaim control over your life, the critical factor to it is to take a look at the, well, gravity works, is to take a look at what you're not content with. You know, if you're content with something, leave it alone. If you're not content with it, that's what you start shifting. That's what you start changing. Okay. Doesn't matter what it was and what it is. If you're not happy with the layout of your home, with the clutter in it, start removing stuff. You know, from my stand, like I look at the skydiving thing, and it's like, why get out? Now, I was told, one person told me you get out because of the rush. I looked at the person, and I went, okay, at 6 years old, roughly, I got picked up and was flown and got flown in a tornado. Trust me, the rush of skydiving is nothing compared to that. And of course, at about 3 years old, well, about 5 years old, I was up playing zero-G wall ball. You know, the rush is not what I look for. I look for peace and quiet. And I'll tell you, it's really peaceful and quiet in my house if we don't talk about the ghosts. You know, in my house. It's a pretty quiet house. Okay. But I've got people coming and going from here all the time. Granted, most of them are deceased. Okay. Absolutely there, Carl. See, I find cooking is real easy. Put it on the stove, and if it starts to smell like it's burning, it's done. This is why I said I'm not what you would call a good cook. Although, in all fairness, I've never put a whole lot of effort into it. Okay. But the biggest trick in the book is you take a look at yourself and go, am I happy? Not am I making other people happy, but am I happy myself? If you look at your life, are you content with the way your life is? Are you happy with your financial state? Are you happy with your mental state? Not are you diagnosed with whatever. Okay. I mean, to give you an idea of how much I take faith in diagnoses, well, let's see. 5 years old, I was diagnosed dead. I walked out of the morgue. At about 13, well, at about 2, I was actually diagnosed mentally retarded. But at 13, it was confirmed. And then I went and graduated on the honor roll. So, you know, I look at it going, everybody has their holdups. Everybody has their strengths, their weaknesses. It's time we start focusing on the things that we have that we've got a strength in. Okay. When you're talking to those around you, the more you understand about the way they are and how they're behaving, and that gets done, by the way, through communication lines. Okay. The more you know the people around you, the less likely you're going to have problems in your neighborhood. Okay. This is providing, of course, you're looking at the people you know and going, okay, that's the way they are. Here's the boundaries that I live by. And as long as people follow those boundaries, we're good. Okay. Because karmic law is real simple. Okay. The 3 karmic laws, and these are the only laws I actually follow. But compare these to the laws that you find that you yourself follow. Whether they're social laws, legal laws, as in they've been written into the law books, or societal laws that people just take as accepted. The only three I follow: be true to yourself first, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you, and energy out, energy in. Okay, now compare all the laws and all the guidelines you operate by, and I do believe you'll find they all fit inside those three. Okay, now what I'm looking at this year is I take a look at Christmas. Now, we know that Christmas has been over commercialized. We know this because the department stores have the stuff for Christmas up in July. I don't even look at it at that point. Okay, it's just not worth it. Not to me, anyway. This is why Christmas is between, for me, where it comes to Christmas movies, Christmas songs, that sort of thing. That's from December 1st until December 31st. Now, we've already started drawing down the Christmas decorations. Every year prior to this, I've waited till the first week in January. And what I decided was, I'm not taking any of that energy from 2022 into 2023. Okay. And this is the whole key. When you're looking at your life, where it is, where it's heading, 2022 has been whatever kind of a year for you. It's time to look at that and go, okay, am I content with the way my life went that year? Okay. The neat part about it, when we start looking at different races, different species, okay, every single one of them has differences. Okay, and if you want to look at the neurodivergent, or at the way people look at each other, or what they identify as on this planet, and I'm talking just humans, if you take a look at them, okay, we are looking at over 8 billion different versions. Okay, and they are growing in numbers. But we have to realize it's a question of looking at the world and really focusing on the similarities and the positive side of what we're doing, of how we're interacting with each other. If you don't desire people to lie to you, then for pity's sakes, be honest with them. I'm not going to tell you to be politically correct, because the Lord knows I'm not. Okay. Like my kids bought me a t-shirt that says, my people skills are absolutely fine. It's my tolerance for stupidity that needs work. And, I look at it and I look at myself and go, I've done some absolutely stupid things. I knew 5 years ago, I didn't have a date, but I knew 5 years ago my job would come to an end by something that wasn't me. Okay, that wasn't my doing. I'm not the one that pulled the plug on the company. The boss did. However, I knew he was going to, and I didn't set myself up properly financially to handle it. Health-wise, I didn't set myself up properly because I kept biting my tongue and not telling people about the things I was actually concerned with. Okay. I get a kick out of that. Well, not a kick. But, Phil's just saying, I've had neurotypicals get enraged with me and become very abusive. When I get sensory overload, need to take a break and be alone for 5 or 10 minutes. That side of it, I'm a firm believer. It doesn't matter to me who I'm dealing with, whether I'm dealing with a tiny kid, and I do relegate it to the ones that can actually communicate, not ones that can speak my language. Okay, my language being multisyllabic, multisyllabic words. I start with them. And if the kid or the adult, for that matter, and by the way, an adult is simply an older kid. Okay, I treat them all the same way. I'll start off with the language that I work with. And if you guys don't understand it, absolutely ask. Okay. Like I remember one day I was talking to, I ended up talking to somebody, and what ended up coming up was I made a comment that you needed to understand. In order to understand star drives, you had to understand the oscillar densification of the tritrans and spatial equipolarity. Okay. And the person come back to me, and as it turned out, said person had a master's in rocketry and astrophysics. And it took me 2 hours because I don't have a background in either. It took me 2 hours to explain it. What I have come to understand with people, and it applies to all of you. Every one of you is sitting in the house right now, or your version thereof. Maybe you're driving, okay? So I shouldn't say everyone. Most of you are sitting down, puttering around listening at this point. Okay, but I can virtually guarantee if you celebrate Christmas at all, your place looks like an absolute war zone at this point. A lot of stuff that's out that doesn't stay out year round. Like, for instance, having decorations. You've got to decide whether you're going to put them down, put them away or not. Now, each and every one of you has exactly the same borderline. Okay, you've all got the same situation. No matter what you're trying to do, no matter what you're doing, you are doing it in the here and now. If you postpone doing something, all it does, it means you're starting on it later. But when you get to it, you are doing it in the here and now. Okay. That's just the reality of it. And it doesn't matter whether your IQ, which I question at the best of times, whether you're told it's higher or lower than the average, whether you're neurodivergent, whether you identify as one type of person or another, doesn't matter. Okay, you've all got the same situation. Every single one of you has dominant control over whether you're going to be successful. Now, one of the books that I'm working on is one that talks about a formula for success that applies to everything. Now, I don't know if I'll get it done this year. I've got 3 books I'm aiming at completing and getting into print this year, like in 2023. So whether I'll get any more done, I don't know. All of a sudden, I've had a lot of free time opened up, but I still have to get up and move. I did find, and part of my getting up and moving right now is because I'll tell you, here's a chair to spend hours on. Okay, this will give me an idea of why I move around a fair chunk. This is what I'm sitting on for hours. Looks like a real comfortable chair, doesn't it? But it's what I've got to work with. Okay, so yes, I move around a fair chunk. I will get a better chair to work with and a better setup. That's one of those things that is on my list of things to do, but it's not one of my priorities. Okay, but the way to really reclaim, what do we got here? That's a good way to put it there, Philip. Philip just wrote in the chat room, happy second day of Christmas or other holy day to all the lurkers. Lurkers being people that are listening in or not and are not engaging in the chat room, which is absolutely fine. Okay, one thing I will say to all of you, okay, if you've got a question in any field at all, okay, my primary fields of specialty are metaphysics and the alien, the UFO, the UFO side of things. That's my primary specialty base, but it's not the only thing I work with. And the thing I will tell you is many of you will sit there and you do it with other people around you as well. Okay, where you won't say a word, Danny, to somebody. You won't ask a question because, oh, it sounds like a really, it sounds like a really stupid question. And, but I'll tell you this, there are a staggering number of people that have the exact same questions. Okay. Now, the reality of it is, I've got a very limited number of friends at all. Okay. Some are ancient races, some are off-worlders, and in all fairness, I've got a few that are human. Okay. But the reality behind it is, I am reclusive. Okay. And something that you've got to look at, or that would be wise for you to look at, take a look at your last year. Take a look at 2022. Is there anything you're not content with that did not go that you did not do effectively? Okay. If you know what you're not content with, start altering the things that are holding you back from being content with it. Anything at all. Doesn't matter, because reclaiming power over your life is done by identifying what you're not content with and removing that stuff or altering the energy in it to make it run more smoothly. Now, one of the key factors there is getting rid of the excess clutter in your house. Get rid of the stuff that you no longer require. Okay, kind of a critical point, because here's what happens with clutter. Just like the what the heck is it called? Cholesterol in your arteries. Clutter in your house blocks the energy flow in your house. It blocks the energy in your home. It blocks the energy in your business. Okay. And if you've got clutter in your mind, it'll block the energy flow in your communication centers. Okay. Just like cholesterol blocks blood flow in your body. Okay. And in case you hadn't noticed, if the blood flow doesn't get to your brain, you end up with all kinds of hiccups. Like I was asked one day a long time ago whether I like off-worlders more than I like people. And the answer is no. In all fairness, I really don't. Okay. Some of them have different outlooks, which is great. Ultimately, football, you're right. Okay. If you've got clutter in your house, it ends up encouraging clutter. It's very similar to if you take one spot, if you take a standing body of water and you freeze the edge of it, freezing the edge of that water will encourage the deeper water to freeze on the surface. Clutter does the same thing. It slows down the energy, and sooner or later what happens is it starts to get overwhelming. Okay. Now, with that in mind, by clearing the clutter out, you free up the energy. Picture a traffic jam for your brain. Clutter creates that traffic jam. Okay, and what I'm in the process of doing is one of my big jobs is to get rid of everything I don't require. Now, intriguingly enough, because of a decision that I made for this coming winter, for Christmas 2023, I will have to pick up some new ornaments. Or more to the point, in my case, I'm going to have to pick up some new lights. Okay, but I absolutely, emphasize the fact that whatever you're spending money on, make certain that you're making more money than you're spending. Well, in all fairness, space kind of works well the way it is. But you're essentially correct. Okay. See, if you take oxygen with you, you can deal with a lot of things in space. But I will tell you, you get outside of a spaceship, and you may have issues. Not the least of which is freezing to death before you actually. The funny part there is, in one sense, you'll freeze to death. On the other side of it, your blood will boil. Now, have I personally tried either one of those? No. And by the way, not looking forward to trying either one. But in order to reclaim power over your life, you've got to decide what you feel unempowered by. Are you hanging around with people that are constantly telling you, you can't do this, you're incapable of doing this? Okay. Are you hanging around with people or going to groups of people that are telling you, fear everything around you? Because if you don't fear it, you're going to get hurt. Now, you got to remember, courage is action in spite of fear, at least in my opinion. Okay. And the thing we have to look at is if you're going to live your life in fear or you're going to live your life in negativity, in regret, you're not likely to be overly happy. Okay, there is an old saying that is a little twisted, but it goes, sticks and stones may break my bones, but whips and chains excite me. Now, the reality of it is everybody looks at the world in their own way. Okay. It's sad to say, you're absolutely correct, Gordana. Fear does sell, as does sensationalism. This is one of the biggest things I notice. I used to blame the major media. Okay, and go, oh, they're creating all this fear, they're propagating all this fear. It's not just the major media. Take a look at what's coming across social media, or for that matter, take a look at the people you talk to in person. How many of them focus on, oh, did you hear about this robbery? Did you hear about this accident? Did you hear about this person losing control? Or do they focus more on, hey, a friend of mine just got married? Okay. Or a friend of mine just had a wonderful, had a brand new baby come into their life. I went to a restaurant that was phenomenal food and I got great service. Which do you find people focus on more around you? And for that matter, which of those outlooks on life are you living by? Okay. Are you one of these people that will take a look at the things that people are talking about and really buy into the fear side of it or buy into the negative side? Or are you one that goes, yeah, that happened, but did you notice this positive thing? Okay. I mean, for me, it's not a question of people doing things like I do them. I absolutely encourage you, learn and practice, as in put into use, more tact and more, I don't know if I want to call it acceptance or understanding, but certainly use more tact than I do, because I just don't bother. And it really is a drawback on my end. I probably should concern myself a little more with it, but I tried that, and it resulted in a stroke. And I'm thinking, no, not going to do that anymore. Okay. When my job got terminated, I got told by all kinds of people what was legally required, what they had to do, and what they had to do by law. And I shut every one of them down and went, look, I'm content with what he's done. I understand why he's done it. I made some mistakes. I made some stupid moves. But I'm not going into court to try and force anything. It's just not worth it. Okay. And, I have come to the understanding I will live my life as best I can. I will encourage you to do the same thing. But I will tell you, you desire power over your life, stick to focusing on the positive things that you can personally adapt to. Okay. If something isn't working for you, if you know how to do it, great, get up and make it change. If you don't know how to do it, then find somebody that does, or do the research on the internet. Now, I can watch the internet, I can do the research and absolutely understand virtually none of it. So I turn to people that actually do it themselves. Yes, it may cost you a little more. If you can't do it yourself, it will cost you something. But remember, turn to the people that have successfully done it themselves. Okay, do not, like when my father was alive, if I desired to become a millionaire, talking to my father was not the right move. Talking to him about how to get along with your other half absolutely brilliant idea, because he spent, they met in March of 56 and were married in August of 56. Okay. From that day, they spent 60 years under the same roof. And I do not recall either of them ever having a fight with the other. Okay. Yeah, I gave buddy of mine gave me a magnet. It still hangs on my fridge door. It says, "I don't suffer from insanity. I enjoy every minute of it." But patience is overrated. Okay, now don't get me wrong, I shouldn't put it that way. Patience is necessary when the person you are dealing with is dealing with what I call true ignorance. If for whatever reason you're not getting it or you're not understanding it, this is true ignorance. If you do understand it and you're doing it anyway, this is just plain stupidity, and that's where I run into the problem. Okay. There's a lot of things that you can look at, but if you desire control over your life, power over your life, well, control as well. Take a look at it, and bearing in mind, some of you are in situations that are extremely untenable, but because of an overabundance of fear that you've grown up with. Okay. Oh, well, there's a new word for me. Thank you very much, Philip. Philip's just added an interesting word here. Sophophobia, the fear of learning anything new. Okay. And there's a difference between having a fear of learning anything new or a major problem with getting your brain wrapped around it. I've been working with computers myself since 1979, and I still can't get them to do what I desire them to do. But the key to reclaiming power over your life is understanding what you already have power over. Okay. Now, for instance, here's an obvious one. Do you have power over the dishes in your kitchen? Certainly. You may not have the energy to be able to because you might be starting behind the 8 ball right now. So you may not have the energy or the stamina to do all of it at once. Okay. But you should be, what you can do is wash a couple of dishes, go down and sit down, And again, if you're using less dishes than what you're cleaning, that stack of dirty dishes will collapse. Okay. If you're dirtying more dishes than what you're cleaning, you're going to run out of dishes. Again, this is all simple mathematics, really. I'm just looking what Gordon's written here. Sophia equals wisdom. The one who has to invest time in learning, never forcing anyone to learn, is worth of waste. Oh, okay. If you don't have a reason to learn, the odds are you won't. Okay. Mind you, my father always said, if you want a job done efficiently and quickly, always, always, always find the laziest person available and tell them to go and do it. Make that their job, because they will find the fastest, easiest way to get that job done. But make certain they're working inside necessary parameters. Okay. I hear a lot of people, I'm seeing it a lot, especially today. Okay. With people in the chat room, with people quoting sayings from the old days, and we're talking centuries back, and yet many of these sayings people are overlooking. Okay, like my father used to always tell me, take care of the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. There's an African proverb that goes, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Okay. It's the same as you can move a mountain one shovelful at a time. It'll take you a while, Okay, but that's where persistence comes in. And this is why one of the books that I really do want to get, and I do desire to get done. But I've got 3 major books that I'm aiming at getting out this year. Okay. I'm already behind the 8 ball because I desired to have book 12 of the Yldrbac Chronicles out before Christmas. I dropped the ball. So I'm looking at it now. I've gone into final edit. Okay. And I'm looking at the end of March right now. Time will tell to see if I manage to pull that off. And of course the second printing of the Races of the Worlds, I'm also looking at getting done, which is another major endeavor on my part. Although that one I'm making pretty good headway with. However, the fact that I've got complications with the computer is causing some concerns. So I have to really really look at that and get that done. I've got to get that information onto another computer. But of course, everything snowballed at the same time. But if you desire power over your life, you really have to take a look at what you're capable of doing, what you're capable of learning, and much more importantly, what you're willing to do to reclaim power. Because nobody's just going to give it to you. Okay, they're not just going to go, here, you've now got control of your life. You can see this throughout history. That is not the way people operate. Okay. And I mean, in my case, I remember past lives. Okay. People on the whole we're taught that change is difficult. Change is scary. Change is hard. And I've shown you guys this. I've shown many of you this multiple times. That's just it. My problem with sales right now there, Philip. First and foremost, did I talk to Walter Bosley? Walter Bosley. The answer there is not yet. Of course, in all fairness, I don't know how to get a hold of him, more how to find him. Okay, my problem with sales is twofold. One is marketing is not my strong suit, and I'm having to teach myself that. Okay, and 2 is the shipping cost. Okay, because I'll tell you, this book here, okay, the first of the set, okay, that book, for me to print each one is costing me $20. So in order to be able to order new ones, I've got to be charging $40 to actually have enough money to be able to reorder a new set. Okay, like more inventory. But to mail that, and somebody did mention that, and I will be doing it in January. Okay, somebody did mention to talk, actually I can do it before the end of this year, to talk to people like DHL or Purelator and see what kind of a deal they have for shipping books. And that's something, come to think of it, do I have my list here? Whoop. Yeah, sure. Pulling absolute dead there. But I've got to talk to those people and see if I can get a better shipping rate. Because going through Canada Post, okay, to ship that book for me is $40, or it's $25. Now, needless to say, 40, 25, that means that these books are really hard to move because of the fact that we're dealing with $65 in your hand. Way too high for most people. Okay, so shipping is something I've got to deal with. Now, a couple of things I have thought about is finding somebody where I can ship a load, like a stack of them to somebody and have them resell them. Okay, but again, I'm running into this neat little problem of finding somebody that's willing to do that. Okay, because we are talking about a starting situation here. Okay, now do I have websites up and running? Certainly. Okay, but none of them are set up to order directly off of. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna, like, I tried another one that was supposed to be that way, and they shafted me right to the hilt, and I don't have the money. I spent well over 10 grand on companies that claim to be, claim to be print to order. And what they did was they took my money and did not produce. I don't have the money to gamble anymore. Okay, so it's going to be a long, drawn out process. I know this. But I do appreciate the information there, Lulu. And Lulu, my apologies there. I do appreciate the information there, Philip. And I will be looking into them. Because I'll go back through these and make certain I've got different variables I can look at. I don't mind the issue of working with somebody else. I've been trying to figure out how to do that. But of course, me and the internet, well, that's always been fun. And, you can call that one an excuse, all you want. My computer the other day, it literally, the whole system locked up for let's see. The computer clock stopped at 6:31 on the 24th. I didn't realize because I wasn't staring at the clock there until the morning of the 25th that it had stopped updating. It had stopped running the clock at all, which, by the way, also meant that everything else collapsed on it. This is one of those projects that I've done that's going to be an ongoing learning curve. And it's one of those things I look at going, I messed up badly on trusting somebody else. They went, oh, we can do this for this much money. No, more on my experience with basically with corporations across the board has been, to say the least, less than functional. Okay, it's been extremely disappointing. So, is my trust level virtually non-existent in it? Certainly. But I still have no real option. I got to figure out a way to work with it. When you're talking about claiming power over your life, look at where your holdups are. Are you content with the way that the world is working for you? Are you content with the way that you're putting things on hold to make other people content? Okay. And much as I will absolutely tell you, helping other people is an absolutely fantastic idea. Okay. There are countless examples. There was a movie that came out a while ago called Pay It Forward. And there was another example where somebody traded. They started with a paperclip and they traded their way up to finally getting a house, the cost of which was a fair amount of time and just a lot of trading back and forth. Real barter still exists. Okay. Now, the reality behind it is that the other person has to, number one, be open to it. And number two, you've got to know what your value is. And I will tell you, this is the backbone of that. Okay, those 4 words, absolutely critical. And when I take a look at it and watch, I grabbed the wrong one. Which one? I got to put those in the other way. Yeah, it's this one. This book here, as you can tell, not very big. Okay, but that is the backbone of how I took control of my own life. Which is why I can now look in the mirror and go, yes, I made some miscalculations. That's this. Oh, okay. Oh, that's a piece of information that's really handy there, Philip. Thank you so much. Okay. I will have to talk to Dave about that and see what happens. But I've got to get my head on straight first and know exactly what I'm looking at, so I know, so I've got the information he's going to be aiming for. But again, it's one of those things, this transition from having no income to having a stable income is going to take some time. And the real factor of really gaining control over gaining power over your life is understand it's going to take persistence and it's going to take patience. Okay, you didn't get to the state in your life that you're in overnight, in all likelihood. Now, granted, I went from a stable income to no income like that, right? Not my control. But I now have control over whether I'm going to do anything with it and actually learn from this miscalculation. Much more, or equally importantly for me, is to make certain I pass the same information on to give other people the chance to see what happens if you don't do it. Okay, because if you continue to procrastinate, which is what I did, I've got some companies that I'm supposed to deal with. I got the information last week. When I talk about professional procrastination, you know what procrastination is. The old saying, never do today what you can put off till tomorrow. Well, I took that to a whole new level. And I went, never do what you can put off. I figure, why even bother finishing the statement? Just, if you can put it off, do so. This is very counterproductive to being successful. Okay. Now, if you look back over the last 2 years, you go back to the beginning of 2021, my hair was down way past my elbows. It was way down here. Okay. I finally decided I was going to change it. Well, there is always tomorrow. Okay. But the options for tomorrow, this is, Gordana has said there is always tomorrow. And there is. What there isn't always is the same opportunity tomorrow as there was today. Hence the saying, strike while the iron is hot. Okay. Now, from my standpoint, there's always tomorrow works really well. But here's the catch with it. Tomorrow never actually comes. It never gets here. You've got, there is a saying that goes, today is the tomorrow you dreamt about yesterday. And today is the yesterday you will talk about tomorrow. But everything you do is done today. Because think about it. You go for coffee with somebody. Okay. Nobody sits down and says, Jim, you've tried setting things up for a while. Okay, and you finally managed to get time to sit down for coffee with a person. I've never heard somebody sit down and say, hey, I'm really glad you managed to get here tomorrow. Thanks so much for coming and talking to me yesterday. Okay, people just don't do that. It's in the here and now. This is the only time you've got control over that you can regain power over your life, is in the here and now. And it's up to you to take a look at what's going on around you and go, I'm changing now. Not I'm changing next week. I mean, granted, I did take a look at when I got the information of the companies I need to deal with. I did look at it and go, I'm 3 days away from Christmas. I'm not doing anything until after Boxing Day. Okay. But that's because I looked at it and went, I am enjoying Christmas and just not worrying about the rest of the world. Okay. And that's how it went. Now, yesterday, I actually had Christmas with my ex-wife and both my boys. And during that, everything went great. It was a wonderful time, except when I got outside into the snow. My knee decided, my calf, my calf went one direction, my hip went the other direction, and my knee split the difference. So I hit the ground pretty hard. Okay. Nope, didn't break anything, didn't end up with any bruising. Just painful. Okay. And that's all fine and dandy. I'm back functioning, as it were. But I took a look at last week and went, no, I'm approaching Christmas. That's where my focus is. Starting tomorrow, I've got a list of phone calls I've got to make that I've got to get the ball rolling on. Now, whether I'll have any luck with government or with, like I said, the ISBN numbers. I don't know. I will look back into it and get things organized. But that starts all tomorrow morning. You have the same option. Pick your priorities, but make certain you keep your priorities, your goals, as at the top of your list of things to get done. Do not continue making this mistake that so many make and put your life on hold or put yourself into a bind, as in helping people by giving them too much of your money when you haven't taken into consideration whether you've got enough for you. Remember, you're not the only person on the planet. You know, Philip, that's exactly the same problem. It's a question of if you make a mistake in today's world, well, it took 40 years fighting, literally 40 years fighting with the BC government to finally get my income tax worked out right. Last year is the first time in my entire life that all of my income tax, all the records that they had, matched the facts of the matter. Took them 40 years to straighten it out. Okay. And that was because somebody decided not to do the job properly on their end. And net result, I ended up behind the 8 ball. And of course, you get so fed up with people saying, well, it's your fault. Like, I had a company just the other day. If you had told us this, and, I told them, I don't have familiarity in this field. And that's the silly part. If you be honest with people, and I encourage you, be honest, but be direct. Okay, because what happened with me is I turned around and said, I don't know any of this stuff. And then the guy made a mistake after months of doing this. He made the mistake of going, well, if you had told us this was the situation, and I lost it. I said, I know how this goes. You're just like every other corporation I've dealt with. It's my fault, and you're shifting the blame. I can work with it. But now that you put yourself back in the same boat, I'm no longer playing games. Now, I am not known for being subtle. Okay. And when people come to you, and they will come to you, there's no question there. Especially, it seems, if you're empathic, you run into all kinds of neat little catches. Okay. If you're empathic, you seem to draw more people to you going, I need help. And because you can feel it, first instinct seems to be, I'm going to do what I can. What you have to learn is that you've got to take care of you as a priority. Because if you're giving all of your stuff away to other people, you're giving your money away to help other people, and they're not paying attention, and you end up behind the 8 ball because of it, which, by the way, I've done. What ends up happening is you're now in dire straits yourself, and you're the one requiring assistance. Okay, so this is why it is so important to know your own boundaries. I strongly recommend, I've done this before with people regarding business, put a policy together. This is how I'm going to run my life. Like, one of the policies I've got, and it's written down, okay, is when a bill comes in, okay, get it paid right away. Okay, now here's the thing. Some people will tell you wait until a week beforehand, then get it paid. And I'm telling you, from my experience, that usually doesn't work out well. So what I'm doing tomorrow, I've got a couple of bills that came in, and I wasn't doing anything before Christmas was over. So first thing in the morning, I've got a couple of bills that I'm going to clear. Okay, I've got the money sitting there, so I'm going to deal with it that way. I absolutely agree with you there, Philip. The issue, the reality is that there are companies that if you're not doing your job, the representatives of said company go, oh, no, you can't fire them. You've got to go through this rigmarole. In my world, you're not doing your job. Cut the person loose. Absolutely. Warn them that they're not doing their job right. Do what you can to make that correct. But if they're not willing to make the effort, let them go. And Gordana, you're absolutely correct. When you take a look at the boundaries of your money, your time, your energy levels, okay, absolutely take those into consideration. You know, my son, just for instance, for Christmas Day, he knows I don't like driving in the winter and I don't like driving in the dark. Well, on Christmas morning, he had already told me he would grab a bus or something to get up to Christmas. So I turned around, and when I got up in the morning, the weather was good. It was real bright out. So I phoned him up, asked him it would fit me. I had gas in the tank. That wasn't a problem. And I asked him, would you like a lift? Well, he accepted the lift, but he ended up taking a bus home because after I took the fall, he's like, no, I'm not making it get you and drive me home, Dad. Right. Now, I have been told quite often that I'm way too stubborn for my own good, and I really am. I've got boundaries that may be unrealistic to some people, but get your boundaries in place, and I strongly encourage you, get a list of life, if you will, rules of operation, okay, or code of operation. And the same thing applies to a business, but you got to remember, your home life is a business. Think about it. In business, you've got bills to pay, you've got inventory, you've got supply you've got to worry about, you've got customer service you have to deal with. At home, you've got your bills that need to be paid, you've got food and what have you that's got to be brought in, and you've got people that you've got to deal with on a social level. Okay, these are the same things, and therefore, a policy book or a list of your boundaries, okay, is a very beneficial tool. Now, to give you an idea where we're talking about the rules, all you need in this book, you take whatever date you're making the policy, write down the date. Doesn't matter if you write down the time. You write down the date, write down what the policy is, and write down why the policy. For me, when it comes to paying bills, okay, when it comes to paying bills, I take a look at it and go, okay, the bill comes in, so I'm going to pay it as soon as, if I've got the money, I'm going to pay it and make sure that it gets paid right away. Because as Gordana has pointed out, having those boundaries in place is really good for your mental health. My stress of worrying about, did I pay that bill? If the bill comes in and I pay it off right away, mark down on the physical bill that it's been paid, or on the electronic tracker that I've got on Excel, okay, that bill has been paid. Then I can look at it and go, okay, it's paid. I don't have to worry about it until the next one. Oh, absolutely. Philip, one of those things that is absolutely imperative, especially for those of us that know we're empathic. By the way, everybody is empathic. Just some people are more disconnected or have learned to be more disconnected. Okay. It's funny you should put it that way. Phillips just said, I need an ambassador to go between me and anyone from Planet Rage. It's like I told a girlfriend of mine years ago. I have no problem, because she was saying, yeah, I really want to get in front of the crowds. I want to make a singing career. But she says, I don't want to have to deal with the problematic media. I said, look, I got no problem handling the media and telling them where the boundaries are. But we may require a PR specialist, public relations specialist, because I'm quite willing to tell somebody what to do with themselves. And frankly, the amount of money they've got doesn't make any impact on me at all. Okay. I had somebody tell me one day that I was turning down a staggering amount of money for them doing my life story. And the guy says, you don't understand how much money you're giving away that you're turning down. I looked at him and I said, I understand fully the number of the dollars I'm turning down. But what you seem to not get is how little I care about them. Now, in today's world, I will tell you, I should have cared about finances a lot more. Much like if you watch the movie, Scrooge, okay, much like he figured out his business should have been humanity instead of money. Okay, mine should have came from the other end. I should have actually paid attention to both, and it really is a balance between your material world and your emotional one that is going to make the difference between whether you're truly successful in your eyes or whether you're not. Okay, this is one of those things that we have to look at and go, where is the balance? Now, the balance for me is simple, because finances don't care how much money you've got and what you're feeling like. They don't care at all. It's just literally, this is the amount of money you've got. This is the bill, period. If you're feeling bad, it still wants the same thing. It still reacts the same way. Okay. If you're in a really good mood, money will not increase the amount of interest that you're making on it sitting in the bank. Okay. Which brings me to that other thing. And bear in mind, I am not what you would call a qualified financial advisor. I mean, I will tell you this. Here's the advice. Don't do what I did, or you're likely to end up in the mess I'm in. But I will tell you, the money that you make in the bank sitting there, check your interest rates. If you're getting more interest by leaving it sit than what you're paying by having a bill, like for instance, by having a credit card debt, okay, then certainly leave it sit there. But most banks only pay, like, if you're really, really lucky, 0.5% interest. Your credit cards are charging you 16 to 25 to 29. Okay. Now, rationally speaking, take a look at the credit card debt. That's the thing you wipe out, because the interest rate is costing you more than what the percentage is, than what the interest rate that you're getting from the bank. And again, it boils down to looking at the math. And money is nothing but numbers. Okay. If you're one of these people that does not understand the numbers, then absolutely look at it. Absolutely take a look at the numbers and get somebody to sit down with you and point out what's going on, help you understand it. Okay. Absolutely talk to somebody that has done it successfully. Now, I can tell you where mistakes can be made. Okay, but if you truly desire power over your life, it's time to really assess what your life is producing. Are you spending more money than what you're earning? Are you going into debt to get something that's going to cost you a fortune? Give you a prime example. With my cell phone company, okay, with my cell phone provider, I should say, I qualify for a no interest. They say no interest. Cute thought. Okay, and I can pay $60 a month for 2 years. Now, if you think about that, let's see, 60 times 24. I'm looking at I can buy a cell phone on their payment plan at $60 a month for 2 years. Okay, which means $1,440. Yet if I go into the store, okay, if I go into the store, I can buy a brand new cell phone for $200. But I have to put the money aside to do it. Now, let me ask you this. If you're going to be putting $60 a month aside, which makes more sense? Putting that $60 into, putting that $60 into the bank and leaving it sit there, or paying it to the company. Okay. I will tell you, math will serve you well. And it's one of those skills that people really have to look at and start working with. No matter how challenging it may be for you, you either have to learn how to work with it or find somebody that you trust to work for it and work with it for you. Okay. Another thing I've got to do tomorrow, because I got to set up to go and talk to my financial advisor in the bank. I've got a few things I need to talk to them about. I doubt I'll get to them this year because I've only got a 3-day window. But I will get to them early in 2023 and get things set up so I get what I'm aiming for. Okay. And like we talked about earlier today, earlier in the chat room, somebody asked me about whether or not I can pull my RSP out early. And in all fairness, I may be able to. I'm going to find out. Well, and I agree very much with those comments there, Philip. When I was looking into it the other day myself, and the one thing I have found that is sadly lacking amongst the massive majority of the human race is humanity. Okay. People's ability or interest in caring about the neighbor, in communicating with the neighbor, in helping each other out. On the whole, mankind's humanity has all but died. It's, I want it now. I want it right this second. Okay. And this permeates all of our society. Okay. People are so interested, they're so driven by greed. At least it appears this way to me. And maybe you see it a different way. Now, do understand something very, very important. What I'm about to say is my opinion. And just like your opinion, it cannot be wrong. The facts may be wrong, the conclusions may be erroneous, but the opinion itself cannot be wrong. Okay. And what I found on the whole, and this is what I am striving to take this whole YouTube channel and get it to do, is to help people realize that that on the whole, mankind is driven by greed and hindered by fear. Okay. We are not pushing the idea of helping. Even when you go into the churches, the temples, the covens, they push the concept of fear. They do not push the concept of if you're nice to each other, if you're really nice to each other, you'll go to heaven, you'll have a wonderful time. Little overrated, but that's my personal opinion. They don't look at you and go, if you are nice to each other and you treat each other well, then your passing will be easier in all likelihood. Now, it doesn't guarantee it, by the way. When you're at work, you're told, if you don't do this, you're fired. If you don't follow this rule in the home, you get punished. People have to start turning that around and going, if you do this, here's the benefit you get. If you focus on this positive thing, here's the benefit, here's the reward for it, not the punishment. Again, we get back to this idea of you maximize the positive, you minimize the negative. Okay. Now it was great. Today was weird. I got up this morning, and my son usually is the one that lives on the PS5, which means the front TV gets taken out of the equation, right? But I got up and I picked three shows that I personally desired to watch. Okay. And I told him when he got up, I said, this is what I want. And he's like, okay, there was no argument, none of that. See, the other thing there, Philip, because you are right, the other thing you'll find is that people that are in a situation, if you're in a situation that you're not content with. Okay, if you're in a job you hate, and I'm talking about if you're in a job you hate and you've got an option, whatever you do, even if you don't like your job, stick with it until you've got a viable replacement. But people that are in a situation they dislike will spend more money trying to convince themselves they're happy than they'll actually save. I mean, you think about it. I spent way too much money over the last year. If you think about it, over the last year, I spent over $5,000 in restaurants and that's just, that's only going once a day. Okay, I was spending $400 a month easy. Okay, in restaurants, and that was just me going because I didn't like cooking. Okay, but I spent it so I didn't have to cook. This was a stupid move. Okay, it's not that I cook poorly. I've never gotten food poisoning from my own cooking. But it's a case of I don't enjoy it, so I was going out to a restaurant. Well, this doesn't work. Yeah, ironically, there, Gordana, people do kill each other for a job. And there are jobs where that is literally their job. Okay. Now, in one sense, much as I've got all the respect in the world for people that choose to join the military or first responders to protect their neighborhoods, to protect their family, to protect their country, much as I got all the respect in the world for them, would I go after a job like that? Not a prayer. Okay. Not because I don't agree with what they're trying to do. Like I said, I got a lot of respect for it. But because of the fact that killing somebody else because somebody is upset. Nightmare, glad you could make it. Welcome aboard. And hope your Christmas has gone very well. People are the thing for me is this. If your job is to go and kill somebody that somebody else is upset with, or to enforce a law that does not apply to everybody, I personally don't want that job. Okay, I know I would run into problems because I know I'd run into a problem enforcing something I don't believe in. And this is why I tell people when they have contacted me and gone, I need a safe way to tell somebody this. Yeah, but here's the thing, Gordana, you're absolutely right. But it's a problem. We take society. If the laws do not apply to everybody equally, regardless of their income, regardless of what they're doing for a living, okay, if the laws do not apply for everybody, then what happens is society will fracture. And you'll get these little clusters of gangs. Okay, but if those laws inside that gang are not equally distributed and equally enforced, you have the exact same problem and it fractures again. Okay, in today's world, people talk about world unity and they are finding so many ways to absolutely scramble unity. It's no longer a question of here's a logical thing we have a problem with. Okay. I told people this a long time ago and got told I was, no, you can't expect them to do that. I've got no problem with people being on legitimate welfare. Okay, welfare, social services, whatever you call it. I am going to be going after medical disability myself. Okay, because I cannot stand up and do a job on my feet for 2 hours. I mean, I'm lucky if I can do a job on my feet for 15 minutes. But I had always held, if the government would turn around and go to the people that are just simply unemployed for whatever reason, okay, as long as it's not a medically proven reason, i.e., you're physically crippled, you can't do it. Or like my brother, when he was ill, he could not stand up, lay down, sit down, stay awake, or stay asleep for longer than 2 hours at a time. Now, needless to say, this meant he was unemployable. Okay. But the ones that are at home because they don't have it and because they just don't want to work. Okay. And they come up with all kinds of reasons. I always said, take one member of the one government employee and take them and put them in charge of 20 welfare recipients. 20 people on social services. Take them out on the street to clean the sidewalks, to clean the sides of the streets. Tell them you're working 8 hours a day doing this in order to get your check. I got told I was being unreasonable. These people are on welfare. They need the help. No, most of them don't. Now, yeah, I'm going to get flack for that. Well, drug testing is only a good idea. I mean, it's a good idea, Eris, in my opinion, depending on what you're looking for. Okay, because with the amount of chemicals stuffed into the foodstuffs that people are eating right now, this is where you get a lot of the problems. Okay. Hey Nathan, glad you managed to drop in. Just tying things down here in the next few minutes, but absolutely glad you made it. Hope your Christmas has gone well. Okay, and as I've said to everybody here, at least I think I have, I really hope that 2023 turns out to be your best year yet. Okay, and by the way, Nathan, if you look at the top of the chat room, the song that I was referring to that my other half put together, there's a link there that you can actually hear it. Okay, from my standpoint, it really boils down to this. If you desire your life to change, the key factor to it is turn around and really assess where your life is, where you're content, and make changes that eliminate the things you're not content with. Okay, alter the energy in your home, i.e., getting rid of the clutter, getting things turned around, so that whatever is stopping you from being happy is being altered. This is the key to reclaiming power over your own life. And I will tell you, I found myself, if my bedroom is clutter free, I sleep better. You undoubtedly will find the same thing. I think much more effectively if my office layout is running smoothly. And again, it really boils down to you deciding what works for you, not what works for me. This is not a question of I've got all the answers. All I've got is a working knowledge and literally lifetimes of memories that back up my conviction for what I'm telling you. Yeah, and I won't argue with you there at all. Phil's just saying drug testing has killed many military veterans in my country. Absolutely. Now, the funny thing there is you've got a bit of a border there. Drug testing being they come to you and they take blood from you and test the drug. I don't know what the numbers of people that have had negative reactions are, but I do know when a government tests drugs on the population, there's another problem. It's still drug testing, but it's got a whole other negative context to it. And again, here's the thing. When you do the thing about drug testing is this, at least from my experience. If you're testing for drugs, you've got to have the appropriate facilities and the appropriate methods in place to help the people deal with sorting it out. Cutting somebody off drugs and telling them to quit alcohol cold, more often than not, creates a massive problem. I was told the same thing. Doctors have said the same thing about somebody that's been smoking for 40 years. Stopping smoking cold can create bigger problems. It can create bigger problems because your system goes into shock. the whole thing, when we look at the issue of cannabis, okay, something you have to realize is that everything in moderation, okay, when we're talking everything, you got to remember, we're still following karmic law under this. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. Now, when you're dealing with drug testing, when you're looking at alcohol, going the average person of this weight can handle this much alcohol. Okay, that is a borderline that they had to put in and went, okay, it just applies. Okay. See, I haven't followed the assisted suicide. From my standpoint, it really boils down to this. If you're permitted to put your dog or your cat to sleep because they're in constant pain, if you're permitted to help them die, why are you not allowed to help people die? Okay. And I'm talking about when they're at a point where, for whatever reason, they cannot continue. Why force them to stay? Now, absolutely, I got a kick out of it. The way the law used to stand, attempted suicide was legal, but suicide was illegal. And I always looked at it and went, what do you put them in prison until rigor mortis sets in, or until they start to smell? The unfortunate part there, Eris, is you can find things like that even in regulated facilities. But I do agree with you with the one aspect. Okay, it is safer going through a place that is regularly tested. It cuts down on the odds of having a problem. See, the sad part there, Gordana, when you're looking at the government, leaving veterans out in the cold, this is something that shouldn't, in my opinion, even be a consideration. It shouldn't even be a question. The people put their life on the line to protect the country, and they went to work in the military. Okay, putting their life on the line. The least they can do is take care of them when they get out. Okay, when they retire. Okay. Yeah, and suffering from PTSD myself, and earlier from night terrors, I understand what you're saying, and it's a very long conversation, and one that we will have to tangle with at some point. But due to the fact we're just hitting the end of the 2-hour mark here. Okay, I'm going to bring this to a close. I'm going to thank you so much, people, for joining me. Really happy that you joined me today. And I will be back again. It seems that 4:30 works out really nicely for me, especially now. So I will be back again. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sake, stay positive.